Hello everyone. This video focuses on the next most important thing to understand about Excel, which is the work surface and where we actually get our work done. Excel is a spreadsheet program, and basically what that means is that everything we do is done in cells. It almost looks like graph paper from back when you were in high school. So to start off, we're going to talk a little bit about cell location. So our cell location appears at the top left right here. And our cell location always starts with the letter before the number. So in this case, our cell right here is in G9, almost like playing Battleship. And we see that it appears at the top left as well right here. For example, if we click over here, this would be I4, and it appears at the top left. And say we need to find a cell that we're working in before. Say we were in D14, we type in D14 and it'll take us to D14. Next, we have our worksheet tabs. So Excel 2016 always starts us with one sheet or one tab at the bottom here. And it's no problem because we can always insert a sheet and then we can click on that sheet and we're going to right click. We can go to rename and say, for example, we can type inventory. And then on the next sheet, we might have styles. And then on the next sheet, we might have brand. So it's pretty helpful to know, and you can make as many sheets as you would like. Another important thing to know is the formula bar, which is at the top here. So whenever you're referring to this at the top, it's not the ribbon, it's the formula bar. Okay, and it's where we can actually see the formulas that we've done. It can see if we made any errors, and we can tweak those as well too. So remember from the ribbon, when we inputted this sum function, and we were summing the numbers, if we double click, we can see what the formula is done. We were summing these numbers to get the value or the sum. But now we can click this. We see that for one, it's cell C10. And in the formula bar, we can see our function, which is sum. And then we see our cells that we've selected, which is C5 to C8. And that little dollar sign right there on both ones means that it's fixed. So it means that if we copy and paste this, it's just going to keep going and it's going to keep referencing back to this. So what I mean by that is if we go in here and we take away these dollar signs, which basically holds our cell, holds our function, and we paste this across, oh wait, now we're not getting the number anymore. Why is that? Now if we click on this, we actually see that it's pointing to cell D5 to D9, whereas before it was pointing this cell. When we copy and drag our formula, it was going back to these cells. That's because we had a dollar sign before both the letter and the number, which was fixing this formula to these cells. Also, at the bottom here, important to note, we have our scroll bars. So we can scroll horizontally. So if we're working on a big spreadsheet, we can see the data we've been working on over here. Or we can scroll vertically. At the bottom here, we also have our zoom function. So say we're working on a big spreadsheet and we need to see all the cells at once just to get a good picture. We'll probably zoom out to 60–70% so we can see more. And if you want to go back, the hundreds right in the middle. And you can also zoom in too if you need a closer image of it. Also, you can click on the zoom right there. You can adjust it by hand. So say you need 75, you can pinpoint it. And you can also use the little plus and minus signs right there. Another important function on this little page right here is the quick sum and the quick count and the quick averages. That's always built in. So what I mean by that is let's go and highlight our cells here. And I don't know if you noticed, but at the bottom appear these numbers that weren't there before. Let's go back, let's click out, they disappear. Let's highlight those numbers. And off the bat, it tells us our average, the count, and the sum. So start, the average between all four of these numbers is 53.5. There's 4 different sections. And the sum is 214, meaning the total is 214. And we can verify that from our sum function in cell B10. We can also go ahead and right-click that and we can adjust it. So we can do a bunch of things by right-clicking this. We can add things like our minimum. We can also add our maximum, just to kind of get a good view. So say we're working on a spreadsheet with 50 or 60 cells, we can highlight them all at once. We can find out the average, we can count them, we can also find the min and the max, and we can point those out just by simply doing that. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know right now about the worksheet. So between the ribbon, the formula bar, and the exterior functions, that gives you a good base of properly operating the worksheet. How to move around inside Excel. Now you'd be surprised. There's actually a number of different ways that we can move around Excel using the keyboard or using the mouse. So if we want to select a specific cell, this relatively straightforward way, we just click it. But what if we want to select multiple cells? What do we do then? What if we need to select this whole table? Well, obviously we're just going to click, we're going to drag. At that point we can do Command C if we need a copy. Go over here, hit Command V, paste it in. Simple stuff, right? And we can always undo. Now, as you probably noticed, you can only select cells in a rectangular function. We can't select a triangle group of cells, and just by using the mouse, it's pretty hard, and it's impossible to select two different columns of cells without using a function. That function is holding down the control button. So say we need to select belt types, which suede leather fabric. We would hit Control for PC and Command for Mac. And then we would do Control or Command C for copy. And then we could come over here and do Command V. And it's going to tell us error, you can't do that. But we have copied both, and if we do that, we can paste both of them in using Command V. We can also do it here if we'd like to as well. Next, there's another way of operating around the worksheet, and that's by using your arrows. So you're up and down, left and right. And we can just simply move through the spreadsheet efficiently, go to different sections, different numbers, quite easily. Now, how do we select multiple cells by using the arrows? Well, we can't do two groups of non-contiguous cells like we could before, right? We could select that, hit Command, and also select those cells at the same time. But what we can do is hold Shift and go down, use our down arrow, or use our right arrow, and then we can go Copy Command, and we can actually copy a section, and then we could go down here and paste it if we wanted to, right? So I'll show you an example. We go over here, we hit Shift, down arrow, go across, Command Copy, scroll over here, hit Command V, and we can paste it. And we can also adjust the size of these cells. So if we grab all of them, and then we go to the top, we see our width is 10 or 65 pixels. And if we go to the right, we can make the box as big as we want, and it affects all three columns. And we can always undo that if we don't like it. Next is the Enter versus the Tab function. So if you click Enter, you notice you drop a cell, and if you hit Tab, you notice you go right a cell. Why? Well, because if we're working on a spreadsheet, pretty much the goal once you master Excel is to not use your mouse at all. And I will eventually show you how to do that. We don't need to use our mouse to do anything, except selecting non-contiguous cells. For example, say we do our Shift down, and then we hit Tab, it'll bring us right to the bottom, and we can see fake leather. And then continuing to hold Shift, we can scroll across, and we can do Command C. We can move over here, paste it efficiently, just like we were before. But if we're operating in a table and we need to move through it quickly, instead of moving down to the down arrows, we can just hit Enter, scroll over, and it's also great if we're inputting data. So say we're doing a new table, and we do fade, instead of going over to the arrow key, we can just hit Tab, we can hit Google, Facebook, and now instead of going all the way down here and having to go back to the next line going 1, 2, 3, because we hit Tab, as soon as we hit enter, it'll bring us down to that next line. But if we were using the arrows, so instead of tabbing over, let's go to the arrow twice, and now let's hit enter. You see how it just dropped us down one cell? Let's go back there. Tab, tab, enter. It brings us back to the original start of our table. And it makes efficiency great if you're inputting a bunch of data or just working on a simple spreadsheet for a project. Now, I want to back up a second, and I want to focus on inserting and deleting columns, because we haven't touched upon that yet. So say we need to get rid of this, and we really don't want it there. Now, let's just highlight it like we did before when we were adjusting the columns, but let's hit delete, and it takes all of them out. And you can also, if we hit the undo button, go up here and right-click it. We see that it says clear contents, so instead of deleting it, because maybe we have important stuff down here, instead of deleting it, and or say we have stuff over here, and we don't want to merge the cells, because if we delete this, it'll bring all of our cells over here and just bring it 3 columns closer this way. We could hit clear content, or we could hit delete. Also, if we have some data in here, and we need to insert a cell right here, we would just click on G, right click, and then hit insert. And now we just put G, we put another cell right there. And see how we have our little option to format same as left, same as right. So basically in this sense, because the cell's blank, if we do hit format same as right, it's basically just going to copy the cell size, the length and the width, right? And now if we were to do the same thing as well too, insert a new cell, going to ask us for the option. We hit same as right and see how it bumps out that cell a little bit bigger. Also, like we've touched upon before, if we make a mistake, you can always hit the undo button and go back, no problem. But another way to do that, which is more efficient, is by hitting Command Z. And if we hit Command Z, 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 it brings us all the way back. And another way we can look at the steps that we've done is if we go up to the undo button here and we click on this little arrow, we can see everything we've done pretty much for the last 25, 50 moves. It tracks everything. So say we want to go back to our step where we redid typing in E9, we would click that, and it would bring us back right before we had, just after we had pasted this little section in here. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know right now about navigation throughout Excel and how to efficiently move through your cells if you're coding using tab and enter. And formatting in Excel and doing stuff to make our data look more interesting. So if we want to start messing around with things, we can go to the Home tab and start playing around with the different fonts. So, as we can see, the company is Luxury Goods Incorporated, but what if we wanted that font to stand out a little bit? And really like the Calibri font that we have up there. Let's go and play around with some of the different ones. So these are all the different fonts that we have, and there's hundreds and hundreds, as you can tell. And we can pick any of them. So let's just pick something that's going to stand out, that's very bold. And then we can also pick the fonts of these sections right here. And let's go in and pick Times New Roman. And then let's also do a fill. Say we want to do a light blue. We could go in and we could fill those guys as well too. Now, what if we wanted our letters and the items that we have up there stick out a little bit more? Say if we had like a really dark font like this and it was kind of hard to see. Well, we could go over to the font colors for, our different styles over here, and we could, instead of going black, we could choose white, and you'll notice that they stand out a lot better. And then we could even go in there and, bump up the font size a little bit and maybe even bold it. So not looking too bad. As well, we could also, change the color for these items if we'd like to as well. So say instead of having them black, we want to make it orange, we could do that as well too. And then we could put maybe a black fill behind it. It really stands out, but yeah, we can kind of play around with it and really do whatever we want. We can also format multiple cells at once too. So let's say we really wanted to have all of these, change to black, and like we were already doing, we want to have a certain font on it. It's easy. All you have to do to format multiple cells. So instead of just formatting one cell, we just drag, and then we can just go over and click what we want and just kind of format it that way. Very easy. We can also format all of the cells if we want to. So if we drag all the columns at the top here and we were to click fill, it would basically fill everything down until basically infinity all the way at the bottom. And if we don't want that, we can always use the undo button. Bring us back to reality there. Also, we can draw borders, which might make it look a little bit better. So if we highlight all of our cells and we go over here, you'll see there's a bunch of different borders we can do. So we can do a nice outside border. So you see there's a nice little thick line around that, kind of highlighting and keeping in our data. We can also go up there and do borders on the inside. So that would be all borders. So if you click on all borders, you'll notice now between the different columns and the rows that we have lines put in place to split apart our data. Now, what if we want to, highlight multiple sections at a time or format multiple things if we have something highlighted? Well, we could basically highlight what we have, right click on that, and then go down to format cells. And you'll see this handy box opens up. And this box is the formatting dialog box. And basically from here, we can do all of our advanced formatting for what we need to work on. Basically, everything that's not up in the ribbon is all in here. So for example, like, we were just working on right here, instead of putting all the borders, like we did, what if we had only wanted, a horizontal border separating our different rows and not a vertical border separating the columns as well? Well, this is where we would come in here, select just that, hit OK, and if we had highlighted all of them, we could go in here, we could take out the vertical border, hit OK, and then you'll notice that disappears from our columns. We also have a lot of different functions in there. So if we go back for a second to format cells, you'll notice that we have, numbers. So, say we want that in a certain currency, we could throw up the $sign, hit OK, and then you'll see it formats all of our numbers with $signs. But, our sizes really, they're not numbers. So we could go up to our dialog box here, or we can control it as well. You just hit general, and it'll change it back to those numbers as well. We can also change the amount of decimal places with this little handy function. So if we want less, we would just click on this little button, bring us to whole numbers. Or, if we want more, want to bump it out, say we're working with numbers and we need multiple decimal places because it can really affect the end outcome, we would spread it out that way. But what if we're working in a very large organization that's multinational, in all different parts of the world? Well, what we can do then is, for example, for our $signs for the price portion of this table, we would go up here and we see it's already up there, put into currency. Okay. Now let's go and click this little arrow, and you'll see when it drops down all the different basically $signs for the different countries. So what if we have part of our organization working in China or, the United Kingdom? So let's click on the pound, and you'll notice that it automatically changes up what we had is what they call in Excel's United States dollar to the pound. Vice versa, we could also do, what they call Chinese or the yen if we're going over to China. So it's a very handy little function. And then we can also split these in, say they weren't supposed to be dollars, they were supposed to be in percentages. We could scroll down here and click percentages, but obviously because we input in a dollar value, it's going to give us insane numbers, which makes no sense. But yeah, if you had something you need to throw in a percentage, that's a great way of doing it as well too. Some of the other things to go through also in the dialog box. So we have our numbers, we can do dates, we can do times, which is very important as well too. The alignment of our text, so say we want on the right, pull our numbers over, and it formats it as a time too, depending on, what you mess around with in there, so just be careful. Make sure that you're not changing anything around. Also, we can change the fonts, borders like we talked about. Something important that I want to talk about with these borders is that you can make the lines thicker between them if you'd like. So right now we just have it on a very basic small kind of border. If we want to beef it up, we could click that one. And you'll notice that the border does become thicker. An update there. There you go. Notice that it stands out a lot better. And depending on how you like your spreadsheets or how you like the data to be laid out, it's good to understand that you have these different options in the different formatting cells and styles that you have up there. So go through that at your own time and just kind of check out a few. But it's definitely worth noting that formatting can really make or break an Excel spreadsheet if you're sending it to a client or your boss. And it's very important to make sure that the information that you have, after you spend the proper amount of time and making sure that the color scheme is right, looks presentable and looks professional. Basic math. One of the reasons we use Excel so extensively in the real world is because it's one of the greatest calculators in the universe. The challenge is, of course, we need to understand formulas and how to make that happen. Since Excel has a great calculation engine, first we're just going to basically look in this video at really understanding those formulas and how to create them. So many of you know, obviously, the plus sign is for addition, the minus sign is for subtraction, the little star on the 8 key is your asterisk for multiplication, and then the slash down where usually the question mark is on your keyboard is for division. And if you need to raise a number to the power of something, you have to hit that little hat symbol on your 6 key, so shift 6, which is pretty universal for all keyboards. Now, these are just the basic symbols for math in Excel, and really kind of plugging around with different formulas will help you understand a little bit better how to use them and how to input them in formulas. So to start off, I'm going to show you how to multiply a cell by manually typing in the numbers. So for example, say we need to figure out the total worth of our 12 suede belts at a cost of $149.99. So we'd start off by going equals. Whenever we do a formula, we always start off with equals. And then we would type in 149.99 asterisk multiplication times 12. Hit enter, and we get our worth, just shy of $1,800. Now, that's a great way to do it, but it's a little slow and it's a little ineffective because what if we change our quantity to 18? Well, as you notice, it doesn't automatically update, so we would have to go through the whole spreadsheet again, go equals 18 times 149.99, and that can get really extensive if we're doing, quite a large spreadsheet in multiple, formulas at a time. So instead, what we would do is we'd get rid of that. We'd start with an equal sign again, but this time, let's just click on the cell we want to multiply. So that would be B5. And then let's do the multiplication asterisk and then select the other cell. And you'll notice when we hit enter, we get that same number again, $26.99. But let's try this. Let's go into quantity and change that to 15. And look at what the worth is. You'll see that it automatically updates, and that's something very important to note. Also, with the cost, say we're selling them at a discount now, and we're calculating the sale price for $89.99, hit enter, you'll notice that it automatically updates the end result as well too. And the great thing with making a little formula like this, we can essentially just grab this little right part of the cell, and we can copy that right down, and when we do that, Excel automatically then looks at the two bottom cells underneath these two original cells and gives us a formula and a calculation. Same thing again here, and we can check that by double clicking this cell and seeing that yes, it is quantity times cost, which gives us a total worth. It's also important to note another key formula, which is called sum. So pretty much all sum does is just sum up the numbers that you include inside of the formula. So to do that, we would start off once again, like we always do, with an equal sign. And like we did before, we can click each individual cell, or we can manually type in the numbers, 15 plus 76 plus 54 plus 72. And yes, that would give us the sum, 217 items. But the formula we want to use is equals sum. And when you do that, you're always going to want to put a bracket after. And when you put that bracket, it shows you exactly what to do with the formula. So by number 1 and number 2, it's just asking for the two numbers that you want to start summing. So let's drag and copy these 4 cells and then put a bracket in between it to end the formula and hit enter. You'll notice that we still get 217, and if now we need to go through and maybe change that to 47, it automatically updates. Whereas before, all it would have, had was the original numbers that we manually plugged in. So using formulas to their fullest extent not only cuts down time, but at the end of the spreadsheet or end of the assignment, whatever you're doing, it's going to give a much more accurate answer. Also, we could do that if we just copy and paste across. So remember how we were copying down before, holding these boxes? Now that we actually have the formula plugged in, we can physically just copy that right across. And what it's going to do now is basically look at all the cells up here, like it was doing. Oops, hit undo. And basically, it's going to do exactly what it was doing here before. It's just going to point to these cells up here, and then copy that right across. Yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know about basic math. Some other good functions we'll get into later, like if and a few other really good ones. And yeah.